Okay, we're moving right along because we have a tight morning. I'd like to introduce here Sir Tim and Dame Donna Milner, a Holy Land Commission. They're going to come up and share us some recent travels and give us an update on the Holy Land Commission, and then introduce Father Poggi. Sir Tim.
So, being the annual meeting chairs, we decided that we might not have the time to really put together the complete Holy Land Commission report. So we took the cheap way out and invited Father Bernard to come and really give the report. However, there's a couple things that he isn't going to really be able to touch on. So today we're going to give a much more abbreviated report than what we normally do. Donna is going to share some of the humanitarian stories. These are the stories of the people that we are seeing and the people that we've met and the people that have received a variety of financial aid that is allowing them to live. And I mean that seriously. It's allowing them to live in the Holy Land. And following Donna's report on the humanitarian aid, I will come back to the microphone and give an update on the campaign. So, sweetheart.
I'm wired for sound here, so I've heard that people sometimes have difficulty hearing my voice. Can everyone in back hear me okay? Okay, good. I like this plan. So, and I'm also going to ask that my slides remain up because I'm going to refer to some of the pictures as I talk. When Tim and I go to the Holy Land, I've explained that to people, and many times they've said, oh, you're going on pilgrimage. And I keep saying no. And then this morning it suddenly dawned on me, what am I saying? I'm not going on a traditional pilgrimage, but I really am going on pilgrimage because although I don't go into church buildings every time we go to the Holy Land with the Commission, I am meeting the church in person. So I would like to introduce you to some of the church in person that we meet in the Holy Land. My first slide is showing pictures of homes and outside of the homes that we go to. Every single home we go to has some sort of a shrine. It may be small, it may be big, but the minute you walk up to the house, you know that you are in front of a Christian home. So, next slide, please. Oh, I guess I have it. I have control. Cool. Don't usually have that much control. Humanitarian aid is a big portion of the LPJ budget. In 2024, the Latin Patriarchate had budgeted $1 million for humanitarian aid. They spent $1.6 million in humanitarian aid. This year, same budget, $1 million. I can 100% promise you we will not have met that $1 million. And it's unsustainable to keep overspending the amount of money that we need for humanitarian aid. But Cardinal Pisabella says he will not say no to people in need. So we'll come up with the resources and the Holy Spirit will somehow inspire us to obtain them. Our little chart here is showing, I don't want you to look at all the numbers except the one on the base at the right. Beneficiaries of humanitarian aid in the year 2024. Over 8,000 families have received benefit from the money that you have contributed to the Holy Land. 8,000 families. You are touching so many lives. And that's not one person per family. It's a family of multiples. So, I don't know if everyone has heard this talk before, so I'm going to give you a little background. In the United States, in Canada, we have social services in our government provided. So when someone falls upon hard times, you frequently will contact the state, county government, and you have a social worker who steps up and helps you out. That is the church's role in the Holy Land. So the Latin Patriarchate is the social safety net for families. And yes, they do have social workers who are employed and helping. Allow me to introduce to you some families who are receiving humanitarian aid. What you see is a home of a Christian family that we met in March of this year. Again, the aid requests for humanitarian aid at the LPJ were $175 to $200 per month for tuition, food coupons, little help with medical, purchasing medicines, rental support. The requests usually come as a result of unemployment, which is especially high among young adults. And of course, inflation since the war has gone absolutely berserk, and prices have increased sometimes as much as 300%. The LPJ is still receiving support from worldwide Catholic relief agencies, but that support is dwindling, and the requests for aid this year have gone up 300%. So, this is a humanitarian aid recipient family that we met. Father is trained as a teacher. He lost his job as a teacher. He has now been working as a janitor for the Custos, the Franciscans who are helping. They have a family of 6, a 17-year-old daughter, an 18-year-old daughter who are both in high school, a 14-year-old son, and a 10-year-old son. And their home consists of 3 rooms. The bedroom they have given up to their 2 daughters so they could have privacy, and as you can see, those are twin-size beds, and I am standing at the door of the bedroom when we are taking that picture. If you have very thin legs, you can walk between the beds. There are no dressers, there are no closets. Father is sitting in the living room. The table is also the dining room. It is also a bedroom for the other 4 members of the family at nighttime. The kitchen is the hallway between that room and the bedroom. At this point in time, Mother worked in the hospitality industry, and when the war broke out, hospitality industry employees were laid off. She is now unemployed. Father is still working, but his solo income is no longer capable of supporting a family of 6. So they are receiving tuition support, food coupons, utility support, but not rental support because they actually own that home. This is the only family we have met in the 3 years that we have been visiting families receiving humanitarian aid that owns their own home. And the only reason they own their own home is he inherited from his father, who had inherited it from his father. So it's a 3rd generation home. And the roof leaks something fierce. Next humanitarian aid family that we met, Mother is from Armenia. Father is from Jordan. They met online after an aunt suggested that they start text messaging and emailing each other. And they ultimately met in Jordan, got married, but Mother needed to wait for 2 years in order to get into Israel, where the husband lives. And when they finally got together, they both had jobs, they started their family, they had 2 beautiful daughters, and they enrolled them in Christian school, which was wonderful. However, then things went south. A war broke out. Mother works for the Armenian Museum in the Armenian quarter of the old city of Jerusalem. Her work hours have been cut down to 2 to 6 hours per week. That's not very much work. Father, unfortunately, started having some health problems. He wound up in the hospital with a minor surgery, recovered beautifully. They thought they were out of the woods for 2 weeks. And then he developed pulmonary emboli, which are blood clots in your lungs. Severely incapacitated him. He is not able to work full-time any longer. And then to add insult to injury, there's a family history of small cell carcinoma lung cancer in the family. The mother's mother, so the grandmother of this family, passed away from it. And in the midst of all of this, her brother, who is a widower and has a young daughter, developed small cell lung cancer. Her work salary she sends entirely to her brother because he's unemployed, obviously. He's having chemotherapy. And so she's now trying to support her family and her brother's family as he gets chemotherapy and make certain that his daughter is not out on the streets or put in an orphanage. This family was able to be self-sustaining until all of this happened. And now we are supporting them. Okay, next slide I think I can get to, or maybe not. So this family, as I said, is receiving food coupons, tuition aid, utility support. In the little picture, Mom showed us that those were her 2 daughters and her husband. And if you've ever seen a home in the old city of Jerusalem, that's pretty typical of a kitchen. One person can get into it at a time. Frequently, kitchens are like Coleman stoves with the little gas that are put outside the house because you smoke up the entire home if you're trying to cook in there. And many of the homes have stone walls. In this particular home, the walls crumble into silica particles, and as you can imagine, a dad with pulmonary emboli already having pulmonary compromise, the home is making them sick. But they can't move. Okay, this is our 3rd humanitarian aid recipient family. Mother is from Ukraine and left Ukraine to get away from the war. Oops. She met a wonderful Christian man. He's Palestinian Christian. They met, they married, they built a home. He was employed well enough as a chef that between her kindergarten teacher salary and his chef salary, they were able to build a home in Bet Jala. They thought they were ready to go. They decided it was time to start their family. And unfortunately, their home was attacked and burned down, and they were driven off their land. Even though Bet Jala is Palestinian territory, Jewish settlers drove them out of their home. So now they're broke, and then the war breaks out. Mother works at a kindergarten that is usually populated by children from people who have come from outside the country and bring their children to an English-speaking school. Many of the people from outside the country, when the war in Gaza broke out, left, so the kindergarten closed. Father also became unemployed. He was a school teacher, didn't have a job any longer. However, if you recall, we had mentioned a little bit about a job program that the Latin Patriarchate supports in order to help teach young people new jobs. They took Dad in, taught him how to be a bus driver, and he is now employed for the state of Israel. However, not full-time, at minimum wage. And interestingly, non-Jewish bus drivers frequently get attacked. So the day that we talked to him, his cousin, who is also a bus driver, was in the hospital having been beat up on the bus by people who were riding the bus and found out he was Palestinian. Sad situation, however. They had their baby, who's a beautiful 9-month-old. Mom is currently staying at home with the baby, and Dad is making enough income to purchase some things, but they obviously need some rent support. We give them diapers, we give them baby formula, and we do occasionally give them food coupons to keep this family going. But they're still trying, and they're still very faithful and very devoted to the church. Again, I mentioned many of the homes are tiny. There are 2 rooms, so they expand into the courtyard areas, and you'll see in the courtyards laundry areas, kitchen areas, and outside living areas that they use. We talked about cycling donations through the economy. Sean was kind enough to mention it briefly as a preface to this. I wanted to show you a project because we had the blessing of seeing it both before and after. This is a youth project, a youth center in Haifa. And the building that you see on the left is what it looked like before. The insulation in the building is hay, And I know, we live in Minnesota. Some of our old buildings, if you take down the plaster walls, you'll see straw stuffed in between for insulation. But the wiring was right next to it, and I'm actually stunned that the place never burned down. So it was in really rough shape when we visited it in September of 2003. But because of unemployed Christians who were being employed by the LPJ, this is what the area looks like in March. The building is what you see in the middle photograph. They have redone the inside and the outside. They have added another little building alongside of it where they're teaching children after school how to do podcasting and radio broadcasting. Initially, there were only 6 youth who were participating in the youth center programs. When they had Christ the King celebration in November of 2024, they had over 100 youth in the neighboring area participating. That is what a draw this youth center is, as a safe place for students after school. The upper level of that building has been turned into a regional family counseling center. Because the building is usable, the LPJ is able to employ social workers to do family therapy, PTSD therapy, music therapy, chemical dependency counseling. Families pay what they can. The LPJ helps support those families, and the income from those services are now employing more Christians. So we are using every dollar to touch as many lives as we possibly can. I saw this on a sign outside the family. It says, "Here's love, here's joy, here's safety." Safety is such a huge thing in a war-torn country where you never know if your income is going to be able to feed your family or if it's even going to be there next week. And we are helping keep hope alive. Thank you.
So what I'd like to do is give you folks an update on the Ensuring the Future of the LPJ Schools campaign. For our new investees, let me just give you a very quick background piece before I go through the report. About 2.5 years ago, after Donna and I made our first trip to the Holy Land, we both came back relatively stunned at the condition of the schools. And in talking with the teachers, talking with some of the family, guys, the slides are moving forward without me touching it.
The Holy Spirit.
It was frankly, it was just hard to see. Teachers having to teach in hallways, students, not having their own desk, sharing a desk with, second graders, both sharing one desk. It was just a really tough situation to see. And so the Holy Land Commission provides a report to the Grand Magisterium as part of their visit. And in that report, after talking with Samuel Youssef, the CEO, we determined that there was probably about $2.5 million worth of work that needed to be done immediately. And that report was sent to the Grand Magisterium just about the time that some of the war issues crept up and everything else. But the program then expanded. We decided that, just to fix the destitute parts was probably not good enough. We really needed to bring all 44 schools up to a reasonable standard of education. Cardinal Pizzaballa was very good, and if we go to the next slide, it's not working for me, so I'm just going to tell you to go to slides. So Cardinal Pizzaballa was so passionate about the fact that if the Holy Land Christian population is going to survive, and not only survive, but actually thrive, it is going to be completely dependent on educating the children and getting them jobs where they can stay and work in their communities. And as a result of that, he told us that we should move forward with this campaign. Okay? And I think that's something that I've emphasized everywhere Donna and I have gone. We all like the fact that this is a campaign, okay? But we're doing it because the Cardinal asked us to do it, okay? This was his priority. For this moment in this time, this is his priority. He wants to get the schools fixed. And so with that, we launched the campaign. There we go. A picture of Donna in one of the classrooms. A little bit about the LPJ school system just from statistics, okay? There are 44 schools total. There are 13 in Palestine. There are 25 in Jerusalem. And there are 6 in Israel. Donna and I actually leave at 5 o'clock in the morning next Thursday, this coming Thursday, to go to the Holy Land Commission trip. And this time we are able to get to Jordan. It's been very hard to get to Jordan during the wartime, but we will be in Jordan partly because we want to start seeing the schools and where the needs are, because we haven't been there for a while. I can't emphasize this enough. We're employing about 1,800 people in the schools, okay? And most of those people are Christians. Between hospitality, okay, which is pilgrimages, and between who we hire in the schools, that's where, unfortunately, all the jobs are, okay? And when the hospitality industry gets hit, now it's up to us with the jobs in the schools to really provide the only source of income. So it's been critical to keep the teachers paid. They're serving almost 20,000 students, okay? About 55% of them are Christians. Cardinal Pizzabal is very upfront. He is just as willing to educate the Muslim students, the Jewish students, as he is the Christian students. We never turn down a Christian student. If there's a Christian student that wants to be in the school, we figure out a way to get that Christian student in the school, no matter what the parents can or can't pay, okay? But he also believes that the way to a longer lasting peace is to get the kids to know each other as kids and not as fractions, not as you're a Muslim. He wants them to know that they're kids. We've had growth in the school. I mean, as crazy as that sounds, with all that's going on, we enrolled about 200 more kids this year than we did last year, which is amazing. And the schools have become the hub of all the activities in the region. There is no park and rec centers, okay? If the kids are looking for a safe place to go, they go to the school. And so when I show you a few of the things that the campaign's already done, you're going to see one of the focus points was to rebuild some of the playgrounds and things of that. Why? Not because it was that big a part of their education, but because that is the draw point for the community to have the kids have a safe place to play. Challenges are galore. The deficits are rising because it's harder and harder for people to collect the tuition. The deficits in Jordan are coming down a little bit, mainly because we are enrolling more Muslim students. I mentioned this last year, so I'm sorry if I'm redundant, but people always ask a little bit about the Muslim students. If you go to one of the Jordan schools, you will see a very large, disproportionate number of preteen and teenage girls in our Christian schools. Why is that? Because when they get to that age, the school system no longer values those young ladies' education, okay? And as a result, the parents pull them out of what, for lack of a better word, we'll call the public education system and bring them to our Christian schools so they can continue to get an education, which is a very sad commentary on that. But it's something that we have to step up and do because we value those young ladies as much as anybody else. And it becomes a focal point for us. So when you walk into a 7th grade classroom and you see 8 boys and 22 girls, which helps if you're looking for a prom date, okay? I understand that, okay? You get a little better chance, but that's why that's the case. Probably the most difficult thing that's happened in just the last year, and this doesn't get reported much in the papers, but the Israel government is under some serious financial pressures because they've got a big war going on, and it's a costly war, okay? And as a result, they're trying to save money everywhere they possibly can, and one of those places has been the subsidy that they have been giving the schools for the 6 LPJ schools in Israel who are now no longer getting the same funding that they got. And as a result, for the first time in the history of the LPJ school system, the 6 schools in Israel had a budget deficit. They had spent more than what they got in revenue from tuition or from the government. What about the campaign? I'm going to talk about the campaign really quick now from where the numbers are. Everybody, I shouldn't say everybody, there's a few people in this room that like the numbers. I know that the Kansas City co-chair, Mr. Ron Jury, he loves numbers. So Ron, this is for you, okay? So far, 7.178 million. We've already received almost 5 million. So we still have some pledges that are coming in. Average pledge amount, about $4,000. The average gift, the median gift, that means half the gifts were bigger, half the gifts were smaller, is $1,000. We have had 1,698 people give a gift. And as of the end of August, we have already sent $3.5 million to the LPJ to get projects going. A little statistics, and this lieutenancy needs to be absolutely proud of itself. We have had 259 donors who have given over $2.1 million, and that deserves a round of applause, folks. It takes leadership, which we get from Sean. It also takes generosity, which we are blessed in abundance with. And so thank you very much for your contributions. The Canadian people are not on this list. Not because Canadians haven't given, because the Canadians have been generous in their giving. Based on the way international financial transactions work going to Rome, they have to send their money in a different way, so we don't get the same details that we get from North America. So, what are we trying to fix? This is some examples. Walls of schools that are literally falling down. Bathrooms. Michael, I think that one is yours. I think it's got your name on it. Bathrooms that need to be repaired. School desks, two backpacks at one desk. Okay, I don't think anybody here have a grandchild who has 2 students at his desk in school? Can you raise your hand? I didn't think so. I'm not going through this. This is just made for scale. These are all the projects. Look at how small the type. Look at how big the numbers are. These are all the projects that were done in the first wave of projects. There's a second wave of projects that are currently under engineering and quoting review that is as long as this list. All this is possible because of this campaign. Without this campaign, that stuff is not getting done. It just simply is not getting done. So far, we've touched 60 school renovation projects. We have given about $600,000 in tuition support for the parents, okay? And we continue to go systematically, school by school by school, to get the work done. A few befores and afters. One of the things I talked about is the playgrounds are so critical to not just the school, and Father Bernard will talk a little bit about that, but it's critical to the parish life, the community life. And so we've taken some schools and taken playgrounds that were almost hazardous, and we've made them beautiful places for the kids to be. This one here is in the Husan Latin School. Another one where we did a very similar thing. Took a terrible green space and made it a nice green space. Now, folks, all that green is carpeted artificial cheap artificial turf. It's not real grass, but boy, I'll tell you what, it beats concrete, okay, which is what the kids have. This is a very common, this is in the Anarique school. That's what the school looked like. That's what the classroom looked like when we were done. Little difference. Now, the sad part is that before picture, there's a room right behind it that looks like that still. Okay? Why does it still look that way? Because we can only get so many projects done in a period of time. Is the classroom on the list? Yeah, it's on the list, but we're also not yet to our goal. So we have to continue to push to get to this end of this campaign. School supplies. I mean, we have to do a little bit of everything. The kids are showing you what they did. They got their school supplies. And if you look in the face and you look at the fact that we are in a Jubilee year of hope, if you look at those faces, there's your hope. Okay? There's your hope. This campaign has had a tremendous, unexpected benefit. And I can't tell you how much of a godsend it has turned out to be. We've been able to hire unemployed Christians to do a lot of the work. It's been a godsend. Donna talked about the fact that there is no social service network. The government's not giving them any unemployment. You know, that doesn't exist. So we've been able to take this pile of money, hire people to repair walls, to paint things, to do this, to do that, to do this. And we're giving them not only money, but we're giving them purpose. One of the things that you find, and Father Bernard, I'm sure we'll talk about it a little bit, these folks really don't want to depend on our generosity for their lifestyle. They want to earn it themselves. So, with that, a couple more slides on this. I've talked a little bit about this. I'm going to get to the end because we've got a short goal. We've got our $2 million. One of the things we've asked people to consider is to double their annual donations for just 1 year. North America last year gave almost $10 million in their annual contribution. Our lieutenancy, Sean, I think gave about 1.2. Okay? So if everybody was willing to just do that one time, the campaign would be over. The other part of it that we've been looking at, quite honestly, is major gifts from our members. We have received some of those. Foundation grants, there are a few in the works, including a papal foundation grant that we hope to have in November. Working with some allied organizations. I got to tell you folks, we are getting gifts from friends and neighbors and from parishes. which we are just absolutely thrilled about. You're sharing the story. Your neighbors who are not members of the order, your friends at the parishes are making donations as well. The hardest part about this is that our participation number is just not exactly where we thought it would be. Out of the 13,694 members in the U.S., Sean gave that stat just a few minutes ago, we've got 1,698 people that have made a donation. And somehow, if you haven't, we've got to touch your heart a little bit to help us out. This campaign can't be out of regular donations. It's got to be over and above. So I got one last story, because this leads right into my introduction of my speaker. Father Bernard, have you ever seen this school? This school is across the street from the seminary. It would be either a 5-iron or a bladed wedge, whichever you do best with your golf swing. It's across the street from the seminary. It is, I would call it a very typical school. It's got happy kids. It's got lots of needs. It needs upgrading. But as we walked out the door, we saw something which just touched our hearts. That school was built in 1966 by the members of the Southern Lieutenancy. The priest from that parish came to their annual meeting. He made an appeal and said, folks, I need a school. Okay? And as we walked out, I don't know, a gift of the Holy Spirit to tell me to look up and see it, okay? We see that and say, oh my gosh. And we get back in the van and we look at each other and say, you know what? We're members of something that's been going on for a long time with a lot of generous people who have made a lot of generous donations. So this campaign, folks, is our time. Okay? This is our time to make that generational challenge, that generational change for the lives of these kids, for the lives of these Christians, just like the order has been doing throughout its entire lifetime. Folks, I want to thank you for giving me this opportunity to give you the update on the report. I'll even take a quick question. Do I have time for one quick question?
Do we receive many donations from individual parishes? And I expect to hear from my parish priest, will we donate to the Archdiocese and the Archdiocese will donate?
There have been 3 parishes who have done a special collection that we're aware of, where they told their parishioners that they wanted to do a collection and to bring it in. But there is no coordinated effort whatsoever on that approach. I will say that Archbishop Bree, chairman of the CCB, Broglio. Archbishop Broglio has written a letter to all the bishops saying that this is an approved campaign and he is fine if any fundraising happens for the campaign. So there is no, we are not doing anything that does not have the support of the Catholic bishops.